Fuck, it's been a while. Okay. So recently I've been messing around with multi-item sorters for no particular reason. It's just kind of fun to mess with. But I came across this one, which is a 16 game tick cart-based multi-item sorter designed by Acacia-chan. It works simply by aligning items against there, and then cart will pick up one item in the batch and it will sort based on the contents of the chest. It'll fill it up, take the items out, spit them into here, and all that. Now the thing is, when I was looking at this, there's a few things that I kind of wanted to, well, not necessarily wanted to fix, but to like make better. First, I didn't like these slime and honey lines. I really wanted to get rid of that. And I also wanted to make it less pre-fill, but I will get to that in a minute. In the design I came up with, I used simply the rail turning to decide if it's been accepted or not. So if I take an item out of here, you see this rail turns to accept a cart going this way. Put an item back in, turns the other way. This one uses a redstone torch down here to just redirect the line. But for other directions, simply going this way to the left, you have to have the rail facing the other direction for it to be accepted correctly. After a long while, it was like a couple days, I finally came up with my first design for it. I used this, but this one here it's basically obsolete now. I have a much better cart prep. Well, better is relative here, but I have a better cart prepper that is able to feed carts at 16 game ticks into the machine. So if I break all of these, you see how it only picks up one item and then has their items change and then goes into the cart mess. Now each one of these slices is able to process at 16 game ticks with an asterisk. When in my original testing, I found that this system breaks about once every 1,000 hours or so. Yeah, just to show you why I don't actually use this cart prepper anymore, is it's not perfect in creating the amount of carts that's needed. So if there's like 2 or more stacks of items, it'll spit out 3 carts but only pick up 2 stacks, meaning one cart only has 4 items in it and 1 empty slot. So it'll pull an item out of here and then it will just leave it in there for it to be put up into here. So after messing with that one, I finally came up with a new one. Now this one may look very similar to this one, but they are in a sense not very much different, but have a overall different function. So instead, this one properly creates the carts and creates the amount of carts that's needed to deal with all the items. But this one is a bit better because it doesn't spin, the last cart doesn't exist anymore. And then I have a bunch of other things in here. So we have the thing that allows it to be able to pull items in and out of here without breaking this pre-fill, which there's a lot of pre-fill in the system, which I'll go over in the newer version that I have of the 16 game tick multi-item sorter. So you may also see that I have comparators, that I have observers facing into the blocks where a comparator is reading. There's a reason why I did this, and I'll explain that in a sec. This one uses the detection of a hopper depowering to send a signal to put the item back up into the chest using this line here. I also have this piece of redstone wire to unbud this dropper, which stays powered because of this observer. So if I put in a bunch of items, you can see when it creates carts, it's still 16 game tick, but yeah, it's a bit noisier now since I'm having the iron trapdoor and iron door going off basically twice for every cart that is accepted. You can also see that I have the observer powering into this block, and that's something called comparator priming, and I'll explain why I did that in a second. But yeah, this one uses the cart stack separator from Spectre Talon and Rapscallion's Cartmas. It's the version 1 version, not the version 2. Because I found it to be able to be compacted a lot more than the version 2. So to show you why I'm actually powering the comparators with an observer, I have made this little thing where you can see 2 comparators being read from the same chest, but one has an observer facing into it. So if I hit this note block, you can see that this one goes off 2 game ticks before this one. And the reason this happens is because it's something called comparator priming. Now, I'm not exactly sure on how it works, but from what I understand, when you can use an observer to hard power a comparator which natively doesn't read from a observer because of tile tick priority. So when you send in a signal to a comparator, what actually happens is it primes the comparator to read an output 2 game ticks later. So instead of having the 2 tick delay of a comparator turning on, you can have it be instantaneous to when a signal gets put into here. Now this also allows for a fast readout of a comparator. So if I do something like this with a minecart hopper and it'll be taken out instantly, or like in a tick, you can see that this comparator reads, but that one doesn't. Now this leads me to believe that 8 game tick cart sorters are possible, but are going to be insanely impractical. Well, while yes, this one is able to read the output of an item going into here, it's very unintuitive. Now, the reason why I do this is because it makes the filter reset 2 game ticks faster. So using a instant dropper line to put it back into here, we're able to read that. So when that turns off, I believe it takes 8 game ticks for it to turn back on. Now, I'm pretty sure this can be configured to take about 12 game ticks instead of 16, but I haven't messed with that because the cart prepper can only handle 16 game ticks, and I don't really want to try to make it handle 12 game ticks. So yeah. Now the issue I had with this is it requires a lot of prefill, like I believe 19 stacks of an item per slice, which led me to create that over there. So I first made this cart multi-item sorter based on the version 2, which I just showed off. While yes, this is able to sort every item in the game, it's very, very, very expensive for a multi-item sorter. The general build effort of this is an insane amount, which I'll show you how I fixed that with that one over there using a newer multi-item sorter, cart multi-item sorter. But yeah, this one is able to sort 16, it's able to do the same 16 game ticks, but has a box display where you're only able to sort 1 item. Now this one is kind of stupid, and I did kind of throw it together in like 2 days, so I will not recommend using this because I have not tested its reliability, and I know for a fact it's not reliable because of these box sorters. I fucked it up somewhere, and I haven't been fucked to figure out how to fix it. But this is able to sort every item in the game in all of its separate categories. There's still a few slices to spare on either side. And this also just uses a bunch of components that I both created and found, like this unstackable sorter by Command Leo that sorts buckets in 1.19.3+. And then a few components of my own, like this in-floor box input and empty box holder, where you can just take boxes out and it'll fill itself up. I will leave this world download open. There's a bunch of components around here, some of which I designed, some of which I didn't. Like this signal strength 2 precision box loader. It was designed by Pyra, but I slightly modified it so I can have a box output. So you click that, you can take out the box instead of like other ones where you can't. But yeah, I try to take everything from those, compact into one. This is based on the Grand Multi-Item Sorter by Gangles with just a cart loader on top and a few other things which I liked. This main input's based on a different input. I just slightly modified it to what I like, so you're able to just kind of just hit that and then I'll do all that. And this is also the in-floor box display. This is the in-floor box input. Put items into here, hit it, replaces it. Very simple, drops the box out of the bottom with no buffer. So I messed with it. I didn't like it, so I sort of trashed it, but I'll leave it if you want it. I'm not gonna mess with it any more than what it is. So that leads me to my version 2.5 of my multi-item sorter. So using this slice here, which you can see is different in this bottom section compared to the last one. Now this one is, I believe, about a block shorter than the one I have over there, and it's half the amount of prefill, but it is a small bit slower than the other one, even though it is 16 game take. Now the way how I managed to do less prefill, or actually about half the amount of prefill, is simply by where I take the prefill item out of the cart. So in my original one, I took it out immediately after it got sorted from here. I would take it out using 2 hoppers to be able to pull out all 4 items. This one, I sorted from the stream of items going into the chest where you'd actually see the items using this filter here. So basically what it does, takes a cart in, processes it, drops it down, leaves it in the stack separator. And so when it gets separated out of the stack, it'll drop down here, it gets dropped, and then all the items will end up in here. Now when it detects a item input, yeah, you can see I sort of fucked it up. This isn't the exact one I'm using. I'm using a slightly newer one. But when a item gets detected, when a cart gets detected into this hopper, it'll pulse this one on and off, meaning it'll send 4 pulses to this dropper to spit out 4 items into the water stream. So doing that, we're able to basically take those 4 items, put them back into here, meaning this one won't run out of prefill. So we toss a item into here. It gets eaten using this Crystone box eater. I don't know exactly how it works. It works fine though. That's all you need to know. It will set all the items and it will process all of them. So it picks up its 4 it picks up its 4 blocker items, gets put through the system, and they get separated in here. So yeah, you can see this is what's in here, and then it already spit out 2 items. They already processed 2 cards, so it spit out its 8 items, which these 8 prefill items will be processed into here. Now this is why it is slightly slower than the other one, is it has to deal with these 8 items. But realistically, you probably won't notice much of a difference. So yeah, you see it pre-filling all the way up. And then it'll go through those last ones. And then it'll do it again. And all items are just returned to their buffer back over in here. Now, something I did design for this is the input. It's very simple. It's just this, where you can put loose items in. You can drop the box, it'll break it, and it'll be picked up in the hopper. This also has detection, so if you fill a box all the way up, it'll break it and replace it, and so on. But yeah, I just use that, toss it into here for a simple input, and add all this to be put up into this multi-item sorter. So you can see it's sorting all of these items. Also, if you kind of just want to see what happens to the cart, you can see basically just that. It's nothing too insanely complex, but I also really wanted to remove the store, but I didn't figure out a way how, so I just didn't bother. There's 32 slices in this entire thing, so technically it can run all the slices at once, but you would basically have to have a perfect item distribution. So it'd have to be a perfect stack in each cart, all in a row, but that'll basically never happen, meaning you'll never reach the 288,000 items this can theoretically process. But you can see items all just being pushed around, being put back into the buffer. So just to show you the speed of this multi-item sorter, I took a mixed boxes from each one of these slices. It's 16 slices, so it's only going to be about half the speed total. But toss that box in, and then it will all start getting processed. Yeah, you can see this slice already sorting. This one's already sorting. This one's sorting. This one's sorting. This one. This one. This one. This one. That one. And that one. I also have this design over here, which is just a semi-hopper locked version. There's some hoppers which I simply just cannot lock, like these ones up here. I just can't lock them because they're like really fucking hard to lock, or like impossible, at least in this layout. So I'm pretty sure other than these two hoppers per slice, all other hoppers are locked. And these ones I think I can lock. I just don't really want to deal with locking. This is version 2.5 of my multi-item sorter slice. I prefer this one over that one over there, just because half the amount of pre-fill, you don't have to deal with all the bullshit of better not have forgotten it over here. How the fuck is that possible? Okay. So on top of the fact that this one is just ever so slightly slower, tiny bit smaller, much better rail placement, so you don't have to deal with really stupid rails. It's just those rails, and this is the hardest part down here, which isn't too hard to do. You could probably figure it out by yourself. But other than that, yeah, this one is just the better slice. Probably won't mess with it much more than this. Even though I do think that you can make it faster, better, and cheaper, at least this one in and of itself will probably not, or at least not to my capabilities. So why am I calling this multi-item sorter stupid? Well, there's a few reasons for it, but the main one is price to performance in a sense. This is a very expensive multi-item sorter, to say the least. Like, it is simply just not cheap for what a multi-item sorter should be, or at least for a cart-based one. The reason why cart-based multi-item sorters are so good is because they are cheap, easy to build, and fast. Now the thing is with them is that they have a very limited storage capacity. For instance, this one only has 4 double chests per slice. There are modifications you can do to a multi-item sorter that allows it to have a higher stack size. Also, don't mind that shears up there. I messed with shit like 2 seconds ago. But basically, here's the issue. You're not going to get faster than 32 game takes without having a very large amount of infrastructure needed to be able to run it. So for instance, if you look in the cart miss version 2, you can see that it's very cheap, but also slow with quotation marks compared to a 16 game take. So while this one is 2 times as fast, in practice, it is almost the exact same speed, if not ever so slightly faster. So to show why I don't think 16 game ticks is ideal for a multi-item sorter is simply by just looking at the average contents of boxes. So for instance, if we take out this box, realistically, in this entire box, this will be sorting 4 different slices max if you have a pretty big multi-item sorter. Like you'd have this one all in one slice, you would have these ones all in one slice or something like that. These would all be in one slice, and then you have this all in one slice. So while you're able to process all of those items at 16 game ticks into their own slice, you're still limited at the hopper speed per slice of that item. So you're dealing with hopper speed still, but that's per slice. So the best way to make your multi-item sorter faster is by spreading out all of your items across multiple different slices. So instead of having both black concrete and black wool in the same slice, those will be 2 different slices, meaning if those 2 items are in the multi-item sort at the same time, they will be processing each separately, making it 2 times hopper speed instead of stuck at 1 times hopper speed. The next reason why I believe multi-item sorters of faster than 32 game ticks are kind of stupid on top of the infrastructure price is simply just because you're rarely ever gonna need to process 288,000 items per hour if you're having this small of a storage system. If you have this small of a storage system, most likely it's a single player world or a very small server. You won't have that many items. And not to mention, you will not have a centrally located storage system. This is just for loose items to get processed. Also, with just the general size of this multi-item sorter, you're getting very close to just justifying building a very small full-size storage system, because that's basically the same price you're paying for this. But just because the main attraction of a fast cart-based multi-item sorter is just because of its speed, I don't think this is completely irrelevant in all of storage tech. For instance, if you're dealing with something like an SVAR that processes at 32 times hopper speed, and for some whatever reason you have a lot of multi-item sorter items that get processed, 32 game tick may be worth looking at. But realistically, 16 game ticks is fast enough for basically anyone. 32 game tick is fast enough for pretty much anyone. That's 16 times hopper speed, or the same amount of items that get processed by something like a first item type unloading array, which is 16 times hopper speed at max. But I do believe the 16 game tick multi-item sorter has one actual very useful potential, and that is box sorting. So in original box sorters, you can only process about 5 items max per slice, depending on if that box is full or not. But this one is able to process up to 50 different items in a slice into their own separate categories at 16 game ticks by simply taking out the first item of a box, putting a box in the second slot, and then filling the last 3 slots with an unstackable. So I have all these boxes here in the 8 slices, where you can see it is now able to process all of them. If you're also wondering why there's a dropper here facing into a composter than I am in, it's just to silence the dropper so it's a slight bit less noisy, even though, there's just a big ass iron door here and a piston here. But as you can see, sorts all the items into their slices at 16 game ticks. Now I don't have these boxes set up for multiple different items, so I can't just shove a shit ton in and call it a day. But this may actually have some value. It's a bit big, realistically speaking, but for it being a multi-box sorter at 16 game ticks, it kind of justifies its size. This uses the same mechanics as that over there, of using the comparator priming to process and all of that. Now I will leave this world download with all the random shit around in the description. Take it if you want. I can't promise the reliability of anything in this world, so if you have any problems with it, don't look at me. I won't help. Actually I might, I don't know yet. But yeah, you can look around. I don't give a shit. There'll be probably a archived version of this storage system in Cozy Discord. You go look at that or something. I don't really give a shit. But yeah, have fun with it. See what you can do with it. If you can make it faster than 60 game ticks, cool. If you can't, also cool. But yeah, have fun with it. I don't care. See ya. Bye.